So this is class, what is it, class 153 of Golden Doves. I think it's, class 153 Golden Doves. I'm going to have a few minutes, but I really want to study, especially in light of the horrible point in human history that we're living in. We live in a just absolutely appalling time in human history. I don't know if it's true that Jews are protesting with the Palestinian protesters in various universities. But if that is true, and probably is, we're really, that would be worse than Kapos. The Kapos, they operated in the concentration camps, and I'm not making excuses for them, but they operated under threat of death and worse than death. These Jews, some of these, and I know most Jews today are unified in support of Israel. It doesn't matter, right-wing, left-wing, liberal, progressive, whatever, Jews are unified today. The fact that you have some Jews that would demonstrate with the Palestinian Nazis is just, it's beyond appalling. It's just unfathomable. And it shows that mental illness is not related to logic. There's nothing logical about that. And yet there they are doing it. So mental illness defies logic, of course. All right. So let's study. We're on page 85. We're in the middle of the first paragraph. We're talking about the formulation of the Torah Shebe'al Peh. The oral tradition had only a vocal text, right? So that's the idea of vocal text versus written text. But unlike the paradosis and deuterosis, paradosis has to do with the transmission of a mitzvah. I think deuterosis has to do with the transmission of the oral law. Which was a tradition that Deuterat transmitted in his own words. So the Deuterat was a person doing the transmission, and he would transmit the law. There was no set formula how to transmit the law, right? So you could just transmit it however, in your words. There's many ways to say the same thing, right? So that's the way it was. Before Rabbi Akiva began to formulate the Torah Shebe'al Peh, you can have said the same law in one of many ways. Or whatever formula you want to use, it doesn't matter. The Tanna formulator, and that's the idea of Tanna. A Tanna is a person who formulates, he creates a composition of words to express a particular law. So the Tanna formulator transmitter had to transmit a rigidly controlled text. That's a chidush of the Tannaim. As the Hebrew term chisonim, outsiders, designates the books that do not belong to the scriptures. And now we have the Sefarim chisonim. Not that they're bad books, they're just books that didn't become part of the Torah Shebichtav, right? Like the Sifrei Maccabim. Doesn't mean there's anything bad with them, right? So also, the Aramaic equivalent, Baraita, stands for those traditions that do not belong to the official collection of formulations, right? So the Baraita, so the Chisonim are those books that didn't make it to the official formulation of the Torah Shebichtav, and therefore there is no text in the sense, because we don't count the letters of the book of Maccabees, for example, right? Right? There is no duly registered text. So similarly, the Baraitot are those formulations which did not become part of the official formulation of the Torah Shebe'al Peh. Similarly, there were different levels of textuality, right? So just like we saw in the Torah Shebichtav, there was different levels of textuality. Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. Some things nitinu liklot, lo nitinu lidaresh, right? Also in the Torah Shebe'al Peh, terms such as Tanna, Tanu Rabbanan. Tana, or Tanu Rabbanan. So these, so it's under the word, you see in the Gemara the word Tanya. You see the word in the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, Tana, right? So what do these words mean? So these refer to different levels of textuality, serve to indicate the different levels of the oral tradition, right? I'm looking now at footnote number 5. Teshuvot HaGeonim, and also Masechet, the Yerushalmi Eruvim. Any oral text that was not incorporated into an authoritative collection is not valid. Very interesting. That's a Yerushalmi and Eruvim. Again, any oral text that was not incorporated into an authoritative collection is not valid. A Tanaitic text that was not contained in an official collection did not have the force of a Tanaitic tradition and cannot be construed as a metibi, refutation, or challenge of a Talmudic authority, right? So, for example, when Harambam makes Pesach Halachah, there's some misunderstanding, sometimes they'll bring a Baraita. Oh, how can Harambam say this, a Baraita said that? Well, not every Baraita is an authoritative formulation, right? That's why it's so important to understand that there's different levels of textuality, and not every Tanaitic source has the same authority, right? So that's the idea of the Yerushalmi. Okay, I'm going back to the main text. Other traditions were never formulated and were handed down with no regard to the text, right? So some traditions, learned something from his teacher, and the teacher didn't have a particular formulation. He taught him something, and the student learned it, and the student can teach that to his students in however formulation he wants, because there is no official composition. All right, we'll stop here.